How many card games let you play as a butler? Hey kids, welcome back to the channel. I'm Uncle Frank, hoping that you are having a great day. And in today's video, we continue our look into the wide world of TCGs that are out on the market right now. And today we're talking about a TCG that I was relatively unaware of up until very recently, Alpha Clash. A quick overview, Alpha Clash was a Kickstarter TCG. It's vaguely comic book superhero inspired, with a lot of common superhero tropes being very present on the cards. And its fifth set, Equilibrium, is just a few days away. And with the release of that set just around the corner, Rising Empire Studios actually reached out to me and offered to send me out some product to showcase on the channel for all of you guys. Now, full disclosure, this is not a sponsored video. I am not being paid any money to talk about, review, shill, or advertise Alpha Clash to you, the viewers. They did send me some product, a booster box, a pre-release kit, a 2-player starter deck set, and a comic book, which altogether is a pretty nice package. But just so we're clear, I was not given a script or anything like that. I was not given any kind of requirements for receiving this package. It was just, they sent me this stuff so I could talk about it on the channel, and here we are. If they want to, continue working with me in the future, awesome, but I like to believe that on this channel I can be as unbiased and as honest with you guys as possible and give my genuine opinions on everything I try. And with all of that said, I have been spending the last few hours getting accustomed to the game, learning the rules, going through what we've received here, and taking notes, jotting down my first impressions and my overall opinions on the game so far. And right out the gate, it seems like an okay game. I'm going to be completely honest there. I was quite impressed by the overall production quality of the cards upon first opening up the booster box. Hearing that it started as a Kickstarter TCG, as you guys know, I do not have the highest opinion of Kickstarter TCGs, especially when it comes to quality control for a lot of the individual singles. I was happy to say, and take this as you will, that Alpha Clash cards came out of the box. They weren't horribly misaligned or miscut. Everything looked like it was pretty good. Everything was well aligned, I should say. The other thing I like, all these little note cards so much, is the overall look of the cards. Alpha Clash has a very unified art style and art direction. It all looks like it could realistically be taking place. All the cards look like they're from the same setting, the same world, the same comic book that they are being pulled from. There are minor art differences here and there for some of the alternate arts and certain cards in general, but for the most part, they all look like they're from the same setting, same universe. It's different from some other card games out there, like, let's say, Magic the Gathering, where a lot of the cards just don't look like they belong to the same game even. So that was nice. I gotta say, I am really fond of the pre-release promo foiling in particular. This nice, almost layered look they gave it. It's just a really nice foiling overall, and I'm fond of it. Although, speaking of the foils, some of the cards have this gold foiling on their names, and that's fine for the larger words in the card title, but for the smaller words in the card title, this gold foil makes it really, really hard to read what's going on here, and that I don't like. I don't like not being able to actually read the cards. That is just not something I vibe with. Another thing that I really don't like is I got the impression that the 2-player Clash deck was a kind of starter product. And when you have a starter product, there's kind of an expectation that there's at least a basic rule set in there. And a lot of card games these days don't include basic rules with their intro products. And Alpha Clash is no different. There were no basic rules or even a link to the rules, a card with a QR code to the rules. It's just the decks. And look, I'm going to be honest, if this was intended to be an introductory product, you should include the rules in some way in that product. That's just something I very strongly believe. And the last thing I'll say as far as first impressions go, as I was opening up packs for this set, I found a lot of cards with this Paul dude on it, and I fell in love with him pretty quickly. This is a world of superheroes, mutants, and monsters, and there's just this guy doing his best, living his day-to-day life. And he's on a bunch of cards, including a mozzarella stick card, so I like Paul. Paul is probably my favorite character in this game so far. Now, for the basic rules of the game, players have 50 card decks with a starting hand size of 8 and a hero card or a contender card that they start the game with, which is analogous to the heroes of Flesh and Blood, the Net Navies of Mega Man, and other similar hero-based card games in both the past and present. I like this system a lot. After all, I'm a huge fan of both Flesh and Blood and Mega Man, other card games that use this formula. And something that's really neat about these heroes, and I'll not go too into depth, but their abilities change as the game progresses, because as they lose health, they unlock more abilities on their hero card, which I think is really cool. Now, as for the core gameplay, it kind of feels like a mix between Magic the Gathering and Flesh and Blood. You play permanents, your clashing cards, to attack your opponent and reduce their life to 0. You play those cards by paying just resources, and any card in the game can be a resource, and you play one resource that you keep every turn. There's a lot of intermingling effects. There's colors, there's factions, there's initial costs to the cards you're playing that have to be the same color as the card. You see, cards have a total cost, and then they also have little gemstones underneath that cost that dictate the color of the cards initially used to pay for that cost, which is interesting, but I don't like that a whole lot, just because those little gemstone dots are so small that it's just kind of hard to pick them out, you know? Just looking at these, it's not the most intuitive just picking this up and looking at it. Your eyes are going to be drawn to the big cost number, not the little dots underneath that number. I'm only just now realizing that my notes have no organization to them whatsoever. This was extremely unprofessional of me. One of the core mechanics of the game is the portal, which is always in play and starts the game closed. You can pay 2 resources on your turn to open or close it, and some cards care about whether or not it's open or closed. Or they give you a special effect when they enter or attack if it's opened or closed, etc. I like this in theory because it gives you something to always focus on, irregardless of the type of deck you're working with, because from what I can find, cards from every color and faction care about the portal in some capacity. There's special cards for red, special cards for green, etc. that care about the portal. However, while I like it in theory, in practice, it's kind of annoying to keep track of. It didn't seem all that intuitive to me. And maybe it's just because I wasn't looking at the right cards and the right mechanics, but as I was testing the game out, the portal came up less and less often as the games wore on, and it just quickly became a race to see who could do the most damage. And that race to the finish line is pretty integral to the game. You don't have a whole lot of life to work with as you're churning through your deck. There's not really any clean way to say it. This game seems to almost exclusively revolve around biggest number wins. There's not too many complicated effects I ran across in either the 2 players clash decks or in any of the cards I pulled out of the boxes. It seems to be a pretty straightforward game, which is fine for a lot of people. And maybe I just was looking at the wrong cards, but it seems to be fairly straightforward, fairly simple. Nothing too overly complex, with the exception of, again, I wasn't a huge fan of the little required dots underneath the card costs. Not a fan of that. Oh, and there's the comic book they sent out, which is just a cute little advertisement for the card game itself. It's just some kids on the playground playing hero with one another. It's fun. I don't think there's anything wrong with just neat little tie materials. In fact, I'm actually really fond of any kind of bonus time materials for pretty much any game I'm aware of. I mean, look, I don't even play Dragon Dice, and I absolutely love these little TSR short story books they came out with. I think these are great. What was I doing? Alpha Clash is a hero-based, head-to-head combat TCG. We've seen plenty of them over the last few decades, and I'm sure we will see plenty more in the future. What do I think about the game itself and its future prospects? I'm going to be honest. Full transparency right here. It's very difficult for me to be optimistic about any Kickstarter TCG. I do think Ridge Riley and his team behind the game have a good idea in mind. There's not a lot of card games out there that are trying to capitalize on the superhero trend that had kind of hit the entirety of pop culture with the MCU, the DC movies over the last, 2008? So, geez, it's been almost 20 years since Iron Man came out and superhero films started dominating pop culture. And in that time, there's not been a lot of superhero-themed TCGs trying to grab that concept by the reins and run with it. I think at its core, Alpha Clash has a good concept with some potential. Like I said, I like the core design of the game. I think the cards look good. I really like some of the art I've seen. I do think it needs a bit of polish, but any Kickstarter game lives and dies by the hype of the crowd. We've seen it plenty of times in the past, and I'm sure we'll see it more in the future, where Kickstarter games will come out, be hilariously successful for a while, and then collapse. I don't think that's going to happen to Alpha Clash in the near future, but keep in mind, unless I'm wrong, we're not even at the 2-year mark of the game yet. And as you guys know, and as I've talked before on the channel, that 2-year barrier where initial players start to lose interest, new players are kind of needed to keep things going. That 2-year wall is coming up for Alpha Clash, and I'm curious to see how it will do when that challenge arrives. As for the short term, this set, Equilibrium, is coming out in just a few days. I am going to be keeping an eye on how sales look for certain single cards and the sealed product, just to see how healthy the game seems on the secondary market. I'm just going to use TCG Player sales, and I will do a follow-up video in a few weeks' time just to give you guys my follow-up opinions, because I've only been playing the game for a few hours, so obviously I don't have a fully formed opinion on it, but I'm sure with some more games under my belt, I'll be able to let you guys know more educated opinion. As for my final thoughts on it, my final grade, if you would, I think it's fine. Not terrible, not wow, amazing, the next best thing on the market. I think that if you are in search of a card game that is inspired by kind of late 90s, early 2000s superhero comics, it's worth checking out at the very least. The Clash decks are $20 online, so you can pick them up for relatively cheap and get a few games in to give it a try and see what you guys think of it. If I were to personally give this a number grade, I'd probably say like a 7 out of 10. It's, like I said, fine. It doesn't make me go, whoa. Except for the Paul card. Seriously, just look at this guy. It's great. Anywho, that's really all I've got for you guys today. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, leave a like, subscribe, share with a friend, leave a comment below. Let me know what you guys think about Alpha Clash. Have you played the game? Do you think it's good? Do you think it's bad? Let me know in the comment section below, and I will see you guys in the next one. Post editing for the video itself. Ignore that curtain back there. I completely forgot to mention that they are planning on doing a actual comic series for Alpha Clash, and I'm curious how that will turn out. Having an actual storyline for the card game will be really interesting to see. I'm always a huge fan of lore for card games, but that's it for now.